fair to put this loss on Herbert?
Yeah. It's 10 straight quarters of F- quarterback play in the playoffs by Justin Herbert. Right. This is what it is. I mean, the first good news, well, I guess second good news after Harbaugh getting fired for Lamar in the last couple months. He's no longer the face of shaky playoff quarterbacking from a quarterback that in Lamar's case we know is great.
It's far better
It's
than Herbert.
Exactly right. But like if people talk about like playoff shrink, alleged superstar quarterback Lamar, it's not alleged. If Lamar had been the face of it for a lot of people, he's not. And again, this can change, but the fact that it can change in the future doesn't mean it's not a reality right now. Right now, here's where Justin Herbert is in NFL history amongst quarterbacks with at least 3 playoff starts in passer rating. Dalton's the worst, then Herbert, Brad Johnson, Carson Palmer, Rex Grossman. Palmer at least had one good run late in his career, which again is to say it can happen. Mm-hmm. And when I asked for this graphic, I didn't know Andy Dalton. It was going to be Dalton Herbert 1-2. But we have said for a long time, we're talking about Mahomes and Allen and Lamar, like who's Brady, who's Manning, who's Big Ben of this era. Somebody's also got to be Andy Dalton. And this might sound outrageous because Herbert's 6'6" and has a rocket arm. Here's Andy Dalton and Justin Herbert through 6 years. Now, Herbert's better, but he has a worse record. Same in the playoffs. Team points per game, same. Yards per game goes to Herbert. Yards per pass, Dalton. Again, Herbert is better. But the way it is discussed, he is not discussed like he is a rich man's Andy Dalton until the playoffs when he is just Andy Dalton. And I understand it is always someone else's fault, and the offensive line, particularly in the fourth quarter, was a train wreck. But the flip side to that is this. Literally, no quarterback in NFL history has had their defense force more takeaways in a 3-game playoff losing streak than Justin Herbert has in his. In the last quarter century, no quarterback has lost 3 straight playoff games with their defense forcing 5 turnovers, other than Chad Pennington. Herbert's has forced 10. That's the most in the last.
Forced. Trevor gave him a lot.
Okay, well, whatever it is. I'm saying extra possessions, but still, extra possessions.
I'm joking.
And if we took it to the entirety of NFL history, Herbert's number 1 as well. Number 2, Brew, I didn't do it because I want to do it to your guy. Burt Jones with 9. That Burt Jones fella just showed up a lot of these Justin Herbert playoff.
I know
this
is, but like you have to. You're at I think the 8-yard line when Drake gave you the ball.
Yeah,
like you have to score there.
And so I am again like Greg. I am not saying he is the biggest problem with the team, but he is the superstar who is the reason people believe in the team. Yeah. And for 3 straight playoff games, at least 2.5, straight, he has been totally unproductive. I don't know what else you can say about it.
This is just one of the worst takes I think I've ever heard, truly.
Not been the case in the postseason. Watching that game yesterday, it is very difficult for me to sit here and put it all on Justin Herbert. Knowing what I, as a receiver, and forget the offensive line. We know the offensive line. Mm-hmm. From a receiving standpoint, tell me a guy that was creating any form of separation yesterday.
I was shocked that we had
it. It was unreal. And you cannot do that to your quarterback. I'm not going to give anybody a pass, but Keenan Allen, a little longer in the tooth. Okay, that acceptable if you want to say that. Lad McConkey, no, exactly, the drops. Lad McConkey, no separation. It was poor. Quentin Johnson, where was he?
But here's can I just run that real quick? There was, and I should have him pull the tape. On one of the Herbert scrambles to the right, McConkey is open by a 20-yard radius around him, and at that point they are down 6-3. I understand it'd be one thing if this was a tie or a 3-point or a 6-point game for 2.5 hours before the offensive line totally broke down. You needed your superstar to make one play.
Okay, I like how he's just kind of interrupting Greg, as Greg is literally speaking the truth here that nobody was open. They couldn't run the ball, and the O-line gave up 25 pressures. 25 pressures on the vast majority of dropbacks and pass attempts. He was pressured and nobody was open and they couldn't run the ball. I don't know what you expect Justin Herbert to be able to magically do, and you want to be like in 3 G10 quarters. He was not the problem in the game against the Jags. Like, just stop with that. Stop with that nonsense. And then last year he went up against an elite defense with a terrible offensive line again and got lit up. And now this year, same problems. You're expecting Justin Herbert to be able to win a playoff game with a historically awful offensive line. And it's so ridiculous to do these types of stats comparing him to Andy Dalton, and it meaning like this means anything, because there are so many other numbers that we could do either season to season basis or over careers or whatever, and make so many other quarterbacks look better. Like, are you kidding me? Seasons that Tua Tagovailoa had better numbers than Patrick Mahomes, Baker Maya better numbers. Would you ever use a statistical argument to say that Tua is a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes? You would never do that. You would never do that. So a thing like this is just so absurd. And you know what? Maybe Andy Dalton was actually a pretty darn good quarterback, but the Cincinnati Bengals are trash. How about that? Maybe that's the reality too. Maybe it's the same thing about Eli Manning. Everyone always dunks on Eli Manning, being like, well, he won 2 Super Bowls, but he's not that good. Even Eli Manning won Super Bowls. And it's like, you know what? Maybe he actually was a pretty darn good quarterback, but like the Giants were just kind of a mess. And so he was only able to put it together for, a couple seasons and got to the, won the Super Bowl. Maybe he deserves a lot more credit. Like, the more we look at coaching, the more we look at roster construction, the more we graduate from this narrow-minded view of it just all being on the quarterback's shoulders. And if you win, it's all the quarterback, and if you lose, it's the quarterback. Maybe we kind of have to hit the refresh button on how we evaluate quarterback play. And I've already made my video where I said Justin Herbert needed to be better in this game. This was hardly his best game, but they, as Greg just talked about, nobody was open, and they couldn't run the ball, and they couldn't protect him. What do you want him to do? What do you want him to do? He was pressured 25 times. Everybody had a meltdown about Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, and they're still going to come back like it was the Super Bowl. It was the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter. We're evaluating a football play on a game play on a football field. It doesn't matter if it's a Super Bowl or what. It's a game. So we're saying here's a game that this quarterback dealt with a tremendous amount of pressure. How did he play? And Patrick Mahomes played terribly, and he was pressured a lot less than what Justin Herbert had to deal with here. That's for sure. That's for sure. And other quarterbacks as well. We can go down the list of all these other quarterbacks who were pressured like crazy. And again, it's not like people are open. And you can always point to moments when someone misses a throw. There was absolutely moments that Justin Herbert could have made a better throw or a better decision. Absolutely, I got news for you. You can do that for Matthew Stafford. You could do that for Caleb Williams. You could do that for Jalen Hurts. You could do that for Josh. You can do that for every single quarterback in every single game. That is the biggest pet peeve of mine. People are like, oh, Jalen Hurts, that throw was too high to Devontae Smith in the end of the game. And it's like, okay, so that one throw was maybe slightly too high. What about the other 20 throws that were perfectly placed? You're expecting someone to be able to throw perfectly accurate a 100 out of a 100 red? I see Patrick Mahomes miss throws all the time. I see Matthew Stafford miss throws all the time. I see Josh Allen miss throws all the time. I see them all miss throws. And so you have to figure out, when is it appropriate to criticize a quarterback for missing a throw, and when is it not? And when is it not? And yeah, when you have wide open and throws all game long, like I see with McVay and Stafford, and then you miss a couple throws, I'm like, oh man, that's not good. You're having wide open throws here and you're kind of missing here. Or if I see you miss with like a pretty high degree of regularity, then it's like, then yeah, that's more of a problem to me. That's more of a problem to me. Or if you're missing a bunch of throws again and again and again, it's like, yeah, that's a problem to me. One of Josh Allen's most unbelievable game was last year, or is it 2 years ago? Whatever it was, when he had the 6 touchdowns against the Los Angeles Rams. I think that was last year. I was like, this is one of the most amazing games I've ever seen in my entire life. And Josh Allen made a terrible throw in that game. And Collinsworth was like, oh man, he wishes he could have, it was one of those, he wishes he could have that throwback. And I was just like, it's so fascinating that I can watch a quarterback have literally one of the greatest games of all time. Literally, historically, an amazing, insane, incredible a game that you were watching and you go, I am witnessing history right now. And it was literally history. And yet, there was still a moment in that game where I was like, that was a bad throw. I was like, Josh, that was a bad throw. And it was just like, and I immediately went to the comment section and I immediately went to someone, Travis, who I referenced, who I talked to. I go, how do you make sense of that? Someone who makes such a bad throw, but like did all this other stuff. And he said it best where he's like, you know, what are you going to do? He did so much that game. You can't expect to be perfect. And I was like, yeah, it's true. You just can't. Yeah, you could zoom in on that play, that throw, and say that was bad. So, no. It's not fair to put this loss on Justin Herbert. And you still have to look at it on an individual game basis. If Justin Herbert was consistently supported and consistently had great teams over the years and was just fundamentally playing poorly, then that would be a problem. That would be a problem. But that's not the case. Then you would use history as a reference point. The fact that we will see Lamar Jackson turn the ball over and make bad decisions in multiple games, unforced errors. Yeah, that makes sense to focus on Dak Prescott, focus on, like, that makes sense. That is not the situation that Justin Herbert finds himself in. And it's so funny to hear Greg Jennings say this because I made a clip earlier where I said no player who's actually looking at this through an unbiased line, who's not just trying to be on a podcast and start just chasing clicks, chasing views. We don't got Lean McCoy out there probably being like, you got to find a way to win. I don't know what he said. I don't really care what he has to say, but someone that's just actually having real conversations, that actually knows football because they played, they coached, whatever. No one's putting this on Justin Herbert's shoulders. Nobody on that in that locker room is saying, Justin Herbert is just not good enough. That's why we didn't win. Nobody. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Justin Herbert and the San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment. So, you agree with me or disagree with me? Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much.